Today on Toy Habits, we are reviewing the G.I. Joe Classified series Destro, the faceless power behind Mars, and also comparing him to his vintage figure from 1983. Hey everyone, welcome back to Toy Habits, and today we are taking a detailed look at the weapons manufacturer known as Destro, and we'll be doing a comparison with his vintage figure from 1983. And always, let's first take a look at the packaging. Okay, let's first take a look at the front of the box, and Destro comes in the G.I. Joe Classified window display where you can see his weapons and accessories. And I'm really hot and cold on the art on the front of the box. I really don't like the way Destro's head is drawn. His neck looks really large, and I think they tried to over-index on integrating that Cobra symbol, and I think it's a little bit too abstract and too artistic for my taste. Also, the jewel on his necklace is actually missing the chain, so it just kind of looks like he has a infinity stone or a ruby just dead center in his chest. I do like, however, the side of the box where you see Destro's face, and like some of the other box arts that I've seen, it does wrap around to the front of the box, so I do like that. He kind of looks a little Terminator-esque, very devious, very mischievous, and looks like he is ready to cause destruction. Taking a closer look at the side of the box, let's get to know what Destro is known for. He is a level 4 mechanical engineer, which is critical when you're a weapons manufacturer, a level 1 at wielding light weapons, a level 3 at black market deals, and let me say this iconography is perfect for that one, and finally, he is a level 4 at weapons development. Taking a look at the back of the box, we can see Destro in a very proud look that he has. He is right below Cobra Commander where he should be. You can see his rockets on his arms, which is great, and he has a really amazing look on his face. It's really pensive, and he kind of looks almost proud, like he's developed some weapon of mass destruction that he is ready to unleash on the Joes. Now, before we get into the figure details, let's break down why Destro wears a mask. So, back in season 1 of the G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s, Destro explained why he wears a mask, and the origin stemmed from an ancient family curse because one of his family members was accused of witchcraft, and as a punishment, he was forced to wear a mask for the rest of his life. And Destro was so enraged that his lineage vowed to wear masks, and I quote, until law is sacrificed on the altar of history. Now that's pretty heavy. Alright, enough history. Now, what I really love about Destro's head sculpt is that they really gave him human features even though he's supposedly wearing a mask. So as you can see, he's got frown lines, he's got definition in his cheekbones, you can see his eyes through the mask, which you couldn't in the vintage figure, which we'll go over later. And I love the way that they sculpted his head. They gave him some lines in his head instead of just making this one solid piece like he's a bald dude, which he's not. And looking at the back of the sculpt, you can kind of see some of the armor detail here that they gave on his head and some of the sculpting detail, which I really like. They also gave him realistic ears, which are not present in his vintage figure, which we will talk about in a little bit. I love the way Destro's collar flares out, and it really embodies that Cobra symbol, and it also gives a nod to the 80s cartoon as well. He also comes with a removable chain, and I'll pop his head off later and show that to you when I walk through the accessories that he came with. One more thing to note before we move on to the torso is that Destro has a flesh-colored either shirt or it's his skin. I'm not really sure what it is. I see this on Lady J as well, so I really wish they would kind of pick an in-between color, if it's white, if it's pink. I'm really not sure if he's wearing clothes underneath or if he's not. Looking at the torso, I really love the way they use colors and textures to differentiate certain parts of his chest and abdomen. So for example, he has texture on his upper breastplates. He also has some texture around his abdomen, and if you look really closely, there is some stitching on his bodysuit there. And if you turn the figure around to the back, you can also see similar patterns and similar detail with the texture and colors just used to give the figure in the back a lot more definition. Alright, taking a closer look at Destro's arms, let's first start with his gloves, and I really like the way that there is some definition in his gloves there with some grooves on the back of his hand. I love the way his forearm armor is sculpted, although the paint app I think could use a little quality control because it's a little sloppy. I do like the way that they incorporated an elbow pad in here just to make it a little bit more interesting, and I love the use of texture and color for his shoulder armor. And looking at his right arm, you can see that he has his classic rocket launching forearm armor. And again, I'm gonna pay a little bit closer attention here with the paint slop, and you can see that there is a darker gray that has kind of run over his forearm armor coming from his rocket. So I'm not too happy about that, but I'll move on. He has another elbow pad on his elbow, and again, some more texture on the back of his bicep and his shoulder armor. And one interesting thing that I noticed when I started playing around with his arm articulation is just the color choice that they used for the joint that's underneath his arm. It's a gray color, and I'm not sure why that is, but it kind of looks a little weird. It kind of breaks up his top shoulder, and I wish they would have just used a straight black for this piece. All right, let's take a look at his belt and his holster. And when I was messing around with this figure, I did notice that his belt is actually removable and it is attached to the holster, and his holster is also not molded onto his leg. So it's actually a part that bends, flexes, and I'm actually not really sure how to get it off, but I thought that was super interesting design choice that they chose to go with instead of molding that part specifically to this figure. I wonder if it's because maybe they can just reuse the leg and they can just swap out the holster and the belt for another figure. Let's take a closer look at the holster and belt detail now. I really love the holsters on these G.I. Joe classified figures. They are very detailed, as you can see the stitching and a lot of the sculpting that was put into the holster. He also has a pouch, maybe for a passport, maybe some arms, maybe some extra food money when he's out doing deals, and he also has a red strap that is attached to his belt, and his belt is actually really nicely painted, and it's got some cool detail. It's got some sculpting detail around here. Looks pretty basic from the back, but that's pretty par for the course for Destro. Looking at the pant detail here, about half of his thigh is covered up with his holster and pouch, but on the other leg you can kind of see where they're going with the sculpting for his legs and his pants. And it's pretty basic. There are some line definitions here as well as some wrinkles as you move down closer to the boots, but that's pretty much it. It's pretty much a basic sculpt and not a lot of pant detail on this one. And if you know my reviews from other G.I. Joe classified figures, my favorite part are the boots. And I love that they gave Destro some steel-toed boots. You can see the color differentiation here in the silver and the grays. And I love the boot detail. It's just very intricately detailed, and I love the way that the pants feed into the back of the boot, and also the little tread detail on his shoes and the little buckle detail that they have on the side. So I really love the way that they've designed these shoes, and it looks like Destro is shopping at some pretty high-end stores. And taking a look at Destro's weapons and accessories, he does come with the weapons and accessories you would expect Destro to come with. Let's first take a look at his larger gun, and I really love the way this larger gun is painted. There are red accents on the barrel and red accents all throughout this piece. I love that there is a huge scope on the piece, and it really, really is one of the nicer looking guns that you'll find in this G.I. Joe line. All right, let's take a look at Destro's other gun, and you would expect nothing less than Destro to have a gold pimped out pistol. And I really, really love the design of this pistol. I love that you can see through it where his thumb goes. There's a lot of detail. It looks like it's a very intricate revolver, and there is some detail on the handle here, which is carved in there, and I just really, really like the look of this weapon, and I think it really complements the holster really well, which we will see in a second. And finally, let's take a look at Destro's briefcase. Now, Destro's briefcase is really, really awesome. The Cobra symbol is actually not a sticker. It's actually sculpted detail that's molded on. You can kind of hear the little scratching sound that I'm making with the Cobra symbol here. And if you open it up, This is the perfect briefcase. It's a mix of money and technology, which Destro is known for. You can also see that there's a computer keyboard here, there's a monitor and a screen. Of course, you have to have a branded Cobra logo on the inside, and oodles of cash for his dastardly dealings. And looking at the other side of Destro's briefcase now, there is another Cobra logo here, which is amazing. It has the same similar sculpted detail like the one in the front, and there is also paint detail that is differentiated here in the handles as well as the buckles that keep the briefcase closed. All right, I did pop off Destro's head real quick so we can take a look at this Pimp Daddy chain, and the chain detail is fantastic. It just looks like a thick Guido chain, and it has a red medallion in the center, exactly like the vintage figure and the cartoon that he's portrayed in the 80s. And folks, don't try this at home. You can't actually fit his necklace over his head, so just quickly pop it off and you'll get his necklace right back on his neck. And here is Destro all geared up. I actually like putting his larger gun in his left hand, which gives him his right hand free to carry his briefcase, and he can also chuck the briefcase down to quickly access his pistol in his right holster. All right, now let's compare Destro with his vintage figure, and just looking at the similarities first, you can see that both of the heads have a silver mask, and the vintage figure actually has a chrome head, which I actually really wish that they had put on the classified figure. I think that would be a super nod to the vintage figure and just make Destro's head pop a little more. And just some of the more obvious similarities are the collar flare out and also the representation of the gold chain in both of the figures. Looking at more similarities here, you can also see that Destro has rockets on both the vintage figure and the classified figure on the right forearm. And you can also see the holster detail here, and they just really beefed up the holster in the classified figure, whereas the vintage figure has more of a subdued holster for his gun. And in the vintage figure, they actually put his technology and his briefcase in more of a backpack form, and I actually really love that they utilized the briefcase here for Destro's dealings because I think that fits really well with the character in modern times. All right, let's take a closer look at his briefcase and his backpack, and you can see in the vintage figure there's just arms and armaments in his backpack. So there's really no technology, no money, no computers, and in this updated version, like we saw earlier in the accessories, there is a computer and tons of money for his dealings. And unfortunately, I don't have Destro's vintage gun, so I'll try to throw an image in here just so you can see what the differences are. But the main difference is that the black gun that came with the vintage figure is just a solid black piece. It's not very intricate, although there is a scope on the vintage piece, which really resembles the scope on the classified figure weapon. Destro and his briefcase of goodies look amazing, and you can imagine him pondering his next arms trade or his next scheme to defeat the Joes. Did his last deal go wrong? He is quick to action with his pistols, and I must say he does look pretty badass holding his gun, as he is armed and very dangerous with a look only a mother could love, so Joes, best beware. I guess he came out on the right end of that deal, and he looks mighty victorious with a stone look on his face. And that wraps up this review, so let us know what you think of this figure in the comments below, and if you like this review, let us know by hitting the subscribe button, and thanks always for tuning in to Toy Habits.